Welcome to a new episode of Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. On today's show, we welcome boxing standout Daniel Miracle Man Jacobs. Jacobs boasts an impressive resume. He's a two-time middleweight world champion with 41 fights that includes 37 wins and 30 of them by way of knockout. Jacobs' story is highlighted by a rare form of bone cancer he was diagnosed with in 2011. After being told he would never fight again, Jacobs used that as motivation to get the treatments he needed over a period of 19 months, along with several weeks and hours of rehab and radiation treatments. The Miracle Man, as it became to be known, made a monumental comeback shortly thereafter with a first-round knockout in his first appearance back in the ring. He's been honored by his native city of Brooklyn, where Daniel Jacobs Day is celebrated every April 22nd. We now welcome the Miracle Man to this live stream of Listen In with KNN. Here's your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. We bring you the biggest guests, great analysis, and the hottest sports stories in the nation's capital and beyond. And we bring it to you live. Welcome to this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN. Here's your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a brand new live stream edition of Listening with KNN, Sports Talk Radio Show and Podcast. Happy Thursday. I hope you all are having a fantastic week. To everybody in the DMV, happy sunny day. It feels so good to not have rain and clouds drain our days. But so excited to, again, take you all to a very special guest. Joining me on today's show, I know there's been a lot of talk about the WNBA and all these wonderful numbers that we've been seeing. Of course, football world, we just had the schedule released, but today I'm taking y'all to the boxing world. Love boxing. You're up with the sport and have someone very special joining me today. So without further ado, he's also from the East Coast. So we're welcoming East Coast family into the show. He is none other than, get ready, folks, two-time middleweight world champion Daniel Miracle Man Jacobs to the show. Daniel, thanks so much for joining me. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate that.
Honor and pleasure. First of all, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Where are you right now? What's going on with you?
I'm currently in Atlanta. I'm actually in camp, part Atlanta and part New York, so I'm back and forth. But I'm actually home at the moment, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So you're talking about camp. So let's get into it because you had some big news, I think, kind of to begin the year. But we're going to see you back in the boxing ring, right? Looking at either, I know, June or July. So that has to be really exciting, I know, for you and your camp and your team. But what went into the decision for you to step back into the ring?
The decision for me was my main goal is to really be in the Hall of Fame in boxing. That's been my goal since I put on my first pair of gloves. And due to my last performance when I was in England, obviously we suffered a loss, a very controversial loss at that particular time. And, at that point I said, you know what, maybe it's time for me to hang it up. And I had some contemplating with myself, and some spirit in me just said, you know what, I got to end my career on a bang, on my terms, in the way that I see fit. Also, for me, my career and my life to me has been nothing more of a miracle and very inspirational to so many people. So the things that I've gone through in these last, few years, I just want to be able to come back and give more inspiration, to the more fans of boxing.
I love that. I think you've already been an inspiration, Daniel, through your story, through what you've overcome in adversity, right? Because there's so many people fighting battles, and you've shown us it doesn't matter what you go through, right? I mean, you can get through it. And obviously, like you still go after your Hall of Fame of boxing, Daniel. You're talking about top of the top of the top of the top. So who kind of inspired you to get into the sport? Like, what names do you want to be next to? I'm going to say when you make it into the Hall of Fame of boxing.
Thank
We're
you.
going to manifest it, Daniel.
Well, the likes of Roy Jones Jr., of
Yeah.
course, Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard, Sugar Ray Robertson, all of the guys that actually not only performed inside the ring at a high level, but actually represented something outside and inspired people. So
Yeah.
for me to have such a great story, and also to be hopefully a candidate of the Hall of Fame in the future, I want to be along the likes of those guys to where I can say I meant more to the sport of boxing than just actually going inside the ring and fighting.
Like he's more than an athlete, right? And I know that's a conversation that we're having right now. And like I said, representing something so much more. Something I always say, Daniel, is for athletes to use their platform for a purpose fueled by their passions. And I think you're doing exactly that. So I love the names you mentioned. Sugar Ray, of course, gets a lot of love here in the DC DMV area. And talking about areas, you're from Brownsville, Brooklyn. I know this is something very near and dear to your heart. It said it in the intro, but I know recently you again had a chance to celebrate Daniel Jacobs Day, which is amazing. I mean, anytime you get your own day in your hometown, I think it's no place like home, right? But to get a day that celebrates you and what you mean and represent. I saw you just celebrate this in Brooklyn back on April 22nd. This began back in 2017. So we've continued on. What does that mean for you? As you think about boxing, as you think to get to the Hall of Fame, to represent your hometown and the little boys that want to be the next Daniel Jacobs?
Yeah, it means so much. As a kid coming from the inner cities, you always dreams of, one day having something that you can be able to be proud of. And I think for me as a fighter, which when I was an early teen, that actually came kind of natural to me. So it was kind of hard for me to be ultimately proud of myself without having something substantial. And through all my trials and tribulations, I realized that, with the mindset that I occurred during that time, being able to overcome, being able to take my career and my life path in my hands, I realized that that was the biggest blessing, and also something that I could spread to the world. I never felt like I meant more to not only people, humanity, but to people that I interact with, then when they say, I resonate with your story. I have someone that in my family has gone through cancer, and I show them your story, and, they got inspired and they went on to do so many things in their life. And ultimately, too, creating my own nonprofit organization, the Get in the Ring Foundation.
Yeah.
We gave back to so many kids and hospitals, and we focus on health and nutrition and so many different things. But I realized that I now had purpose, that I wasn't just a fighter, that my life and my story meant more than just going in the ring.
I love that. So what you represent. And again, to have this day, I mean, is it a lot of people how do you celebrate this day? Do you go back to Brooklyn every year? Is the family with you? Is Nate with you? What does that look like for you when you're celebrating?
Well, for me, it's always going back to my hometown, to my neighborhood, Brownsville. They actually have some of the Brownsville greats on a mural in one of the buildings in Brownsville.
Yeah.
And, to me, I've won championships. I've traveled the world. I accomplished so much. But to be highlighted as one of the Brownsville greats, to me, I ultimately just felt like I made it. Like, that's my Hall of Fame for me, being able to be represented in that way. But we go back, we touch the people. Everybody that knows, that reaches out and celebrate in their own individual way. Maybe every other year we'll have a band, or we'll have some form of celebration in a recreational center in Brownsville. But there's different things that we try to do on Daniel Jacobs Day.
Instead of bands, I know DC we have go-go. What do y'all do in Brownsville, Brooklyn? What's the music scene like, Daniel?
I mean, the music is just is pure, you know. And if you know anything
Yeah.
about New York and Brooklyn culture, you know, our music is the purest, the rawest, the most dear to our heart in terms of our experiences in life, and I resonate with that heavy. So it's like growing
Yeah.
up in sports, growing up in music, and growing up in the Brooklyn culture, you know, I try to extend that in my best ability, even as an athlete.
Amazing. Again, and I saw this on your Instagram. I believe you said you can take the man off the hood, but you can't take the hood out of them. So I know,
Yeah,
which you come from, or medicine, and then you talked about, or take the ghetto, I think was your exact
yeah,
words. I
yeah.
love that, you don't forget where you come from. And I think that's
Sure.
so important. Somebody's messing with you from New York. He said Bushwick. Bushwick is better than the Vile. Stop causing trouble, Jamel. Like Daniel's a boxer for a reason. And
Yeah.
speaking of that, something exciting is happening in New York. Jamel had a great question for you. So he said, I never can say this. New York people say it so well. Is it your? Am I saying it right, Daniel?
You
We
gotta
don't
say
say
first.
that in DC.
First, you gotta do like this, and then you gotta say "you're."
Your. You just taught me
Exactly.
something. See, so now when I go back to
Yeah.
Brooklyn, I can be nicely accepted. So
Yeah.
you're one time from the Vile in Brooklyn. How do you
Yes.
feel about the Knicks being one win away from their first Eastern Conference final
Oh,
since 2000? He asked.
that's incredible. I've always been a basketball fan. I actually went to a Knicks game a few months ago, and I got a chance to see them live in person, and it was
Yeah.
incredible. The energy in the city is immeasurable. It's something that you have to experience, especially being born and raised in the city and going through all the trials and tribulations with the Knicks. So this is a good time for the city.
So you're not a Nets fan then? We can take you for the Knicks. You're not going with the
I
Brooklyn
mean,
Nets.
yeah, no, I'm definitely a Knicks fan. Anything New York, whether it's Brooklyn, whether it's Long
Okay.
Island, but yeah, I support my home team.
I love that. So if
Yeah,
they win it all, what's the celebration going to be like for you, Daniel? I know you're a little bit
bananas.
busy with boxing, but
Yes,
I'm sure you're going to find time to get a celebration in because New York
absolutely. I mean,
fans.
I feel like I always wanted to be a part of, you know, a celebration of that magnitude. You know, whether it's a parade or you know some sort. But the New York Knicks have always been dear to my heart, and so I look forward to them hopefully winning the championship.
I will show love to the Knicks. And they've been playing lights out basketball. Love absolutely everything Jalen Brunson has done and has been doing since he's got to this team. So I like seeing Knicks fans happy. So, it's
Yes.
fun to celebrate because not much is going on in DC with my Wizards as of yet. We'll see what they do with that number 2 pick, Daniel. But bringing it back to you talked about what you've overcome in your adversity. And so for folks that don't know your story, so you made your pro debut back in 2007, which might be crazy for you to think about, Daniel. When we think about it's 2024 now. So you've been doing it a very long time. True to it, not new to it. You are to
Yeah.
boxing. But back in 2011, you're diagnosed with a rare form of bone cancer and told you would never fight again. And yet here we are, Daniel, in 2024, talking about you getting back into the ring. So I know this might be hard to do, but take me back to that moment. Like one, what was that like for you? Because I feel like, cancer is something I think a lot of us know about, but I think maybe until it hits you or somebody that you know closely, I don't know if people take it seriously, Daniel, right? It's like, you feel bad, but when it hits you, and I'm sure it changes your life, and all of a sudden something that you dreamt about since you were a young boy can almost be gone from you. What was that like for you when you felt like maybe that your dream was about to be taken away?
It was devastating. I believe it was maybe early 2010 that I realized that I had certain symptoms that I needed to be aware of. And I went to the hospital and they told me that, I had a huge, massive tumor wrapped around my spine. And at that time, when I went to the hospital, it made me partially paralyzed from the waist down. So, things were looking kind of scary for me at that point, and I didn't know if my career was on the line. But after the surgery, the way doctors fused my spine together, they told me that it was so severe, and then my conditions were not good enough for me to be able to come back to boxing. So they tried to
Wow.
steer me away from the sport of boxing and then turn me into another life path. But for me, it was kind of like a life journey at that point for me to understand what I was going through. And it took a
Right.
series of denial, understanding, and then acceptance. I
Mm.
remember being a young, up and coming pro, and I always had a great communication and relationship with God. And I remember speaking to God, asking God, before I get to this level where things start getting really, crazy
Yeah.
for me, allow me to remain humble, allow me to be the meek ones of the world. And I would never forget going through the whole process of cancer, being on that hospital bed. There was a point where I said, how could God do this to me? How could I be, 21, 22 at the time, young, athletic, and I'm going through cancer? And then during my recovery process, something just hit me um, in the middle of the night. And I
Wow.
remember having those conversations with God, asking God to allow me to be meek. And I was
Yeah.
left with not only just life itself, but just, the seconds that I have with my family and the things that actually meant the most to me. And so it was a full circle for me to be able to understand that this was a secret
Yeah.
blessing in disguise.
Hmm.
This was
Wow.
something that I can take on and say, you know what? I had everything stripped from me. The only thing I had was my life, and at that moment, that's the only thing that I needed and not the only thing that was special and important to me. And so I will forever take that lesson in my life. It has made me the man that I am today,
Yeah.
and it has allowed me to inspire others just with the resilient mentality at that time that I had. But life's a journey, and I'm grateful
Yes.
for the roller coaster that we all go through, because it really
Yeah.
defines us at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think we're all tested right through the journeys that life takes us through. Like it is a journey. That was not a hard stop for you. You were going to keep fighting. You're going to keep going. And so when you talk about that cancer diagnosis, I want to just again take you back to like had you known about cancer really at that point? Was there a history of cancer in your family, or was this all really new to you, Daniel, when you got the news? Because you talked about symptoms, but a lot of us I don't even know if we know symptoms, right? You might just think you're sick or I don't know, bad day for your body. Like, what was really the thing, I guess, that pushed you? And then how did you really educate yourself on what you were going through?
Well, at the time, I thought nothing about being sick because,
Yeah.
being young and at the peak of my prime, all I could think about was just boxing. There was nothing else other than my family that was most important. And so that hard stop allowed me to really think about what was important, but also how to really, deal with the process or get more educated in the process. There are a lot of people in my family, and I would deem it to be hereditary, but just some of the foods we eat on a daily basis. Me being as talented as I was,
Yeah.
I would go to the gym and I would win a boxing match, and then my celebration would go into McDonald's or go into some fast food restaurants. And
Yeah.
to me, that was probably my biggest downfall, because I didn't really know how to educate myself and properly healing my body, putting the proper things in my body, and allowing myself to have just a clean slate. And so throughout that whole process, it allowed me to mature, understand that my body is my temple. I treat my body with the respect that it deserves. If not, it'll show you, just how you're harming it. And so that was the
Yeah.
biggest reference for me. Yeah.
And to talk about lessons, I know one of the things that you're planning to do too is when you return to the ring, you're going to have your same team around you, right? That
Yeah.
was around you before. And then it sounds like the lessons that you've done for your body look in great shape, Daniel. It sounds
Thank
like you're
you.
continuing to do, right? So it
Yeah.
sounds like you've had the right people in your corner helping you to make these decisions.
Absolutely. I have an amazing team. And shout out to the whole team, Jacobs, that has been down with me since my day one, the amateur days until now. I always wanted to start out the way that I always wanted to end it the way that I started out, with the same team, the same loved ones that, I started out with. And so for me now, having this full knowledge as an experienced athlete with, all of the fights, all of the wisdom, putting my body through the test so many different years, I now see that I can go on this ending path of my career in a very righteous way.
On your terms, like you said, and in your own way. And
Exactly.
now you've
Yeah.
got this name, which is
Yeah.
important. And now, Daniel, you carry this name, Miracle Man, right? For your victory overcoming bone cancer, beating the odds, right? 19 months away from boxing, 9 hours of surgery, which I couldn't even
Yeah.
imagine. 6 weeks of rehab, 4 months of radiation therapy, but you recovered and you get this nickname. So every time you go out there and you hear people say, "What does that mean to you?" Even now, today.
It just, it's nothing greater than to know that you've been blessed and that you have purpose in life. I think that's the biggest thing that's missing from, especially the kids in my area. You know, they're not told that they're special enough. They're not told that their life actually is valuable. And for
Right.
me, I had the lessons in my life that allowed me to see that I mean something to the world, and that whatever I've gone through can inspire so many people to overcome and be able to do so many things in their life, such as I did. And so I love, one of the things that I love to do when I talk about my story is I can be somewhere random at let's say a Starbucks or a restaurant, or, you know, recently I was in New York City. I took the subway. I haven't taken the subway in maybe 7 years, but I took the subway, and I love to tell older older folks my story, and I'd love to hear their reaction because it's very heartfelt. You know,
Oh,
it's sort of like an understanding of, I feel your pain. I know what you've been through. I may have a similar story, or someone that I know in my life has gone through a similar thing, but just the appreciation value that older folks have when they communicate with me and we share just about our basic life experiences is beautiful. But ultimately, too, you know, so many kids, so many boxers, so many athletes, you know, so many people reach out to me and just tell me how inspiring I am to them in some
oh,
way,
that's
shape, or form.
wonderful.
Yeah,
You
it's
know, and
amazing.
I think just following up from that, you know, sometimes it's hard, Daniel, for folks to be vulnerable, right? And tell about
Yeah,
our darkest days, our weakest days. And if we're being honest, I think especially for Black men, right, there's this stigma. I think Black women have it too. You always have to be strong. And so
yeah.
for you, I mean, was it hard at all for you to be vulnerable and to have people, you know what you've been through, the radiation, the cancer that you had been through, to know that you had kind of been at your weakest moment in time? Or was it more kind of like a weight off your shoulder to be able to be so open? And it sounds like even today to be so open and to really tell people what you've gone through and connect to them in a really vulnerable, innocent way.
For me, it's what I'm made of. It's my identity. It's who I am as an individual. And I don't think there was at any point in time that I got tired of telling my story. You know, I've told a lot of people in the boxing world, and they play, you know, some of my documentaries, and, you know, so many people are aware. But there are still millions of people in the world that maybe not even involved in sports, or maybe not involved in boxing or any type of life and such that I experienced, but they can resonate with that and inspire them in their field of life, or whatever their pains and traumas and tribulations are at that specific time. So I would never get tired of telling my story, because in my mind, I was blessed with the fact that I can say that I'm a survivor. I was blessed with the fact that I can go on and tell people my story and have them smile inside and out, and be able to say, you know, that inspired me. I can tell my family that, you know, I've met such a great person. I can
Oh,
tell so many people that about your story. You know, I go to so many different hospitals, and, you know, I like to connect with some of the kids or some of the adults that are dealing with some of the same traumas. And it's that heartfelt connection that allows me to know I'm doing my job, because, like I said, God has blessed me with a second chance.
beautiful, Daniel. Talking about inspiration, I know you have a young one, Nate Jacobs, that you are also raising while being this
Yeah.
amazing boxer. And I know you wear your son's name on your shorts. They're inspired to talk about inspiration. And he's a football fan, so I'm pretty sure he was excited about yesterday
Oh,
and
yeah.
the schedule release. But, just talk about, too, what it means for you to, be able to represent him as a father in the ring through what you're doing and what he brings to you in terms of your source of inspiration.
Well, my son is my biggest purpose in life. You know, the day that I met him, I was driven to be the best father that I can possibly be. And so now he's in the teen phase, and he's going through his own journey in life, and he's figuring out his path in life. It
Yeah.
means nothing more to me than to be a beacon of hope to him, you know, somebody that he can look up into, but have the actual one-on-one experience to say, that's my dad, and my dad did extraordinary things. He inspired so many people. I don't have to go in the outside world to be inspired, because it resides within my home. So that gives me such a great deal of happiness to know that he can look at me and say, my dad is an inspiration to me. Yeah.
And just seeing your bot on social media. I love is it TikTok videos and the Instagram videos? Is he got you
Yeah.
into that phase, Daniel?
Yes. And so he's definitely a part of the new age generation, where it's social media, TikTok, and all of the dances nonstop. And I try my best to give as much as possible, but he's like, Dad, you need to. He said, in order for you to survive, he just told me this a few weeks ago. He said, in order for you to survive and become a big superstar the way you wanted to be, you got to get down with the new wave of social media. He gave
I
me the
love
gym.
it. He's probably right, though. It seems like if you're not on it, right?
Dude.
I mean, especially TikTok, if you want to connect with the younger generation. But I love the video. The love that you guys have that bond and connection. Maybe he can help you do some TikToks before this next big fight, Daniel.
Yeah, I would love that. He definitely would be a part of it for sure.
To help with promo. And, as we talk about you, getting back in the ring, which is the big storyline around you, anything that you can preview for us, Dan? Because I'll tell you, when I said you were coming on, there's a lot of folks that were just excited about what's next for you in your journey. Because like you talked about the last time, little controversy around it, right? Obviously hoping for a different decision this time. But, what can you tell us? Why should fans be excited? Is there anything they can look forward to as we prepare for the summer fight?
Well, fans can be excited for my comeback because it's something for me that having the time off that I did, because I've been off for almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of time to think. I had a lot of time to sit on the side and calculate if I wanted to come back and what would be the reason for me coming back. And so the biggest thing for me is to be able to end with a big bang. Sometimes you go through your career and you have the woulda, coulda, shoulda mentality as far as, what you could have done. And I don't want to have that taste in my mouth. I know I have a lot of experience left. I'm 37 years young. And so
I love that. Years young. Yes. Speak it into existence.
Yeah. And so, that breeds a lot of experience that I've had that I can be able to add with the mentality of knowing that this is going to be, some of the final fights that I will have. And so I always want to be able to say I gave it my all. And this is what that's representing. But also, too, like I've said, for people who've gone through things within their careers, because being out for 2 years, it's hard to be able to come and bounce back and, get back to that type of status. And so I also want to be a hope for the people who understand this mentality of having weight on your back and coming back and defying the odds.
Odds. Well, that needs to be the next title. Daniel Jacobs defying the odds. And as we talk about, again, this boxing and your story, there's some people, Daniel, boxing fans, who when they look at boxing, they see it and they feel like it's much different, right, than old school boxing. So to those fans, that maybe have lost hope in boxing and, kind of want the old school ways back, what would you say to them? What can we look forward to in the future?
Well, everything evolves in time, even sports, and we have to sometimes adapt to the times. But the beautiful thing about boxing is that we have the new wave of the new social media guys, and then we have still the traditional old school guys who stay pure to the form. And so you'll have a mixture now. But the big thing about it is now everybody gets to be satisfied. Everybody gets to be pleased. It's just about, your cup of tea. And I look forward to now, hopefully my son can help me be a part of the new wave, infusing the old school style and the old school audience or including the new school audience as well.
I know there's been some controversy with like some social media stars getting into the ring, right, with professional boxers. So it sounds like you're not fully against that, Daniel. It sounds like you're trying to, like you said, it's evolved, right? It's a new world. Would you say that's safe to say?
Absolutely. I'm one who love boxing no matter how it's put out, no matter the form, as long as it's not disrespected. And I think these guys, these new YouTuber guys, I think that they take it serious to a degree where they understand that it's definitely not easy. And you're going to learn that once you get in the ring. But also the good thing about it is that they bring a different form of attention to the sport, a different audience. And then their audience may now want to pick up a pair of gloves and try it or teach their kids how to box. And it just keeps the sport alive and thriving well.
Right, that they're helping to grow the sport, I think, in a fun way, because it's a whole new generation, right, that didn't grow up with the heavyweight greats like some of us did. And so again, introducing them to this new wave of boxers, I think, is exciting. And as you talk about the young people in social media, I also know video gamers out there. We can download the Miracle Man, is that right, Daniel? That's on your social media. You're incorporated into this as well.
And so it's the video game that I'm featured on is called the Undisputed Boxing video game. And I just got word that the official disc will be out October 11th, the end of this year. but it's already been out online if you're like an online gamer type of person. So
so fun.
Yeah.
How does it feel? That makes it feel like official when you're in a video game, right? Like,
I think to me, that's when I know I made it, because now I'm able to brag to all my family members who are like real gamers. They appreciate these types of things. And so it makes me more proud and know that, nothing is not achievable,
I love that. I love that. And same with boxing, we have a question from Joseph Lee. He asked, what does the future of women in boxing look like? I love this question, Joseph.
Absolutely. It's in really good hands, I can tell you that. Back in the day, in the Layla Ali days, there were only a handful, maybe less, of women that were notarized as the top boxers in the sport of boxing for women. But now you have the Clarissa Shields of the world. You have,
and she's been on this show.
Oh,
yeah.
She's, I ran into her at the Devin Haney Ryan Garcia fight, and every time I see her, she warms my heart. But the boxing sport, the sport of boxing for women, is thriving very well. They're given their necessary just due. They're now being put on the platform for so many people. They're highlighting fights, their main events. They're selling out, cards within their own right. And this is very new to the sport of boxing when it comes to women. And so I love it. I'm a fan of anybody who can put on a pair of gloves and go inside that ring and risk their life, because that's the risk we all take. And so shout out to all the women boxing. Shout out to Clarissa. She's my heart.
We all love Clarissa.
And, everybody that understand the sacrifice that needs to be made to be able to go in there and to please people by doing what we do.
So exciting. And I love that you touched on that. And, Daniel, as we wrap, anything that you could say out there to your fans, the listeners, the viewers, as we look forward to what's next in the Daniel Jacobs story.
I'm very grateful for all my supporters who's been down with me since day one, even the new fans. I wanted to say and make a stamp that, my main goal is to go out with a big bang and enter the Hall of Fame one day. And so I ask that you continue this journey with me. You can follow me on all my social media platforms, Daniel Jacobs TKO, Twitter, Instagram, and so on and so forth. I will be announcing my next fight within next week, the date and the opponent. It's been very hard for me to get that locked down. So now we finally have something substantial, and I will be releasing it within the week. So hopefully everyone can tune in and stay intrigued into the miracle story, because it's not over.
We'll be looking forward to the next opponent, the date. We'll have to tune in. Again, Daniel Miracle Man Jacobs, thank you so much for joining me live here. It's such a pleasure to meet you. Thanks for taking time out in Atlanta, enjoying the city, the training, and everything else that you got going on, Daniel. We truly are rooting for you and looking forward to more miracles being made, Daniel.
Thank you so much. Pleasure for having me.
You guys, you just heard from Daniel Jacobs. So appreciate his time. So appreciate you all tuning in. We'll be again back next week with another live stream edition. Be sure to follow him on social media. What an incredible story he has. And boxing fans, again, you heard it. We're getting a fight this summer. So something important to look forward to. I want to thank my team as always. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. For those of you going to Preakness, I look forward to seeing you there. Lots happening in the horse racing world. But again, we'll be back on the live stream edition next week. And also check out all new audio editions of the show that just dropped. All right, guys, thank you so much. And as always, make it a great day. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening.
Follow Kelsey on Instagram and X, formerly Twitter, at @TheRealKNelson. Catch episodes of Listen In with KNN on YouTube, on air at AM 1340 and 96.9 FM, Fox Sports Radio in the Washington, D.C. area, on Facebook, and online at KelseyNicoleNelson.com. Thank you for watching this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN.